Welcome to Scrubbed In, the DVM Journey, the podcast where we dive into the wild, rewarding, and sometimes unpredictable world of becoming a Doctor of Veterinary Medicine. I'm your host, Grace Gaynor, a current second-year veterinary student at Virginia, Maryland College of Veterinary Medicine. Whether you're an aspiring vet, a vet student, or just passionate about animals, this is your backstage pass into becoming a DVM. From classroom to clinic, we're sharing the insights, tips, and real-life experiences to help you thrive on your journey to becoming a vet. So scrub in, and let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of Scrubbed In. I'm your host, Grace Gaynor, and today I am so thrilled to welcome Paulina Bravo, who is a current fourth-year veterinary student here at the Virginia, Maryland College of Veterinary Medicine. Paulina, thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me, Grace.
For anyone who doesn't know, Paulina and I go way back. We actually met in undergrad at the University of Maryland while pursuing our college degrees, and we actually worked together as group fitness instructors. And Paulina, I pretty much consider you like my big sister, so I'm so excited to pick your brain today. I'm a body pump instructor, and I can't remember. You were a body pump instructor. What were your other certifications?
Cycling instructor. I did basically the body pump core one, so
Yes.
CX Works, and I was also a Zumba instructor.
Literally did all the things. So I've always looked up to you not only as a group fitness instructor, but also as a vet student. So I'm super excited to talk to you about your journey today.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm very honored to be here, Grace.
Awesome. So tell us about your journey to veterinary school.
Yeah, so going a little bit back, I was born and raised in Mexico, so I came and I moved here when I was 15, so right over high school, and I wasn't even thinking about what I was going to do after high school or college or anything like that. I was thinking that I was going to go back to Mexico, and it didn't happen because college applications were horrible, and I was like, I'm just going to do it here. So I went to the University of Maryland, and there I was like, I'm going to be a STEM major. That was basically what I wanted to do. And I did biology because I thought that I was going to do research and genetics, and then I started doing some research stuff, and I was like, I'm not doing this forever in my life. No.
Yeah.
I'm not sitting in a chair just looking at a computer and typing up words that half the people don't know what's going on. So I did veterinary medicine when I was a child, everyone. We were my family was friends with the vet that we had, so they decided to let me have one day shadowing the vet, and I was young, maybe 9 years old, 8 years old, and I didn't really know what was going on. So I think everything that was going on for me was somewhat traumatic, but I was just regular things that they would do at the vet, vaccinations and stuff like that. And I was like, oh my god, they're making these dogs suffer, because dogs will bark and will yelp and whatever. And so I was like, I'm not doing this. This is not for me. And then back in undergrad, I had a roommate that was in the pre-vet club, and she was like, oh, you should join, because I was in the middle of sophomore year trying to figure out what I wanted to do, since I was not going to do research for the rest of my life. And I was like, okay, I'll join. And I went to the pre-vet club, and I was like, oh my god, okay, this is not as bad as I remember from back old when. And so I decided to join, and then from there I started going to every single event and every single thing, and I was like, okay, I think I do want to end up doing veterinary medicine, for reals.
Yeah.
And so I decided to add the animal science major and it was not a minor, so I had to add it as a major, because I was halfway through my biology life at UMD. So basically I double degreed, and then I applied to 3 vet schools. I was not going to go crazy. I know a lot of people apply to a lot of schools. My biggest thing is that with being an immigrant, I don't get as much monetary help as other people might, and so I was like, there's only 3 places that I really want to go to, and if I don't get to either of them, I'm just gonna apply again. Yeah. And it was one was Virginia, Maryland, one was Kansas, and one was Florida. Don't ask why. I thought I was gonna do zoo medicine, and that was a whole other thing. So those were the big ones, and I actually didn't end up getting anywhere. So it was a little bit disappointed, but everyone tells you, don't give up. A lot of people don't get in. It's a very competitive schooling, and I had talks with all the schools, and I did one more semester than I should have, because I was doing the double degree, so I had a couple of credits that I still needed to do with that. My GPA went up a good amount. And after that, and it was COVID right hit, and I was like, okay, this is okay, because I don't have to do my first year during COVID.
For sure.
And I got more experience because I did start working in a clinic, like a general practice, and I applied again, and I got to Virginia, Maryland. So that's how the story goes.
Wow, I absolutely love that. And I love that you picked the schools that you really wanted to go to and really focused in on those, because I do know that a lot of people, and I understand, want to cast their net very wide, but I also think it's good to realistically understand what schools you can afford to actually go to, because you don't want to have that heartbreaking moment where you apply to a school, you get in, and then you're like, oh wait, can I really afford this?
Yeah, like, and some people don't think about like the living style, right?
So true.
I did apply to Kansas, and my parents were like, are you sure? Like, this is like in the middle of quote unquote nowhere, like you're an immigrant, like there's tornadoes. That was like the big thing. And I was like, well, they do have like the zoo medicine like program that I really want to go to, so they like were a little bit more like accepting of it, but they were like, you have to think that you are going to stay there for 4 years.
Yes.
Like you might think that 4 years is not a lot, but once you start like really going through the trenches and trying to like maybe visit family, and you have to take a plane or something like that, and you need like more you want to visit your friends or anything like that, and that's going to take a lot of money to like travel and stuff like that. You just have to think about that before like you start applying to a lot of places that if they say accept you and you want to be a vet, like you're like, I'm doing it, I'm gonna go, and we'll figure out later. And then once you're there, you might feel miserable, and it's always, vet school is very hard, as a lot of people probably have already said, so you just have to think about that when you're applying to vet schools.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. It's such an important consideration, so I'm glad that you mentioned that today. So obviously you went to college and then you worked full time, so you had awesome clinical experience, but you had to kind of transition back to school after that year. So how did you manage the transition from college to veterinary school, and what were some strategies that helped you adjust to the rigor of veterinary school?
Yeah, so with the double degree in back in UMD, I think I had like a lot of credits that I was taking that I had to balance because a lot of the exams and a lot of the assignments were around the same time, so I really had to practice my non-procrastination skills. And then when I came back to school, to like veterinary school, Virginia, Maryland does it that the first 2 years we have exams every 2 weeks.
Yes.
So the first few weeks of that, my roommates and I did procrastinate a little bit, studying for all the exams that were coming up, and we would sit down over the weekend and just study everything we had done over the 2 weeks. But after that, we really had to like figure out how to study, especially me, because a lot of my my roommates and some of my classmates are really smart. I cannot see one thing and they remember it, like that doesn't work for me. Mine is a repetition thing. So I really had to learn how to like, okay, I'm gonna listen in class. I was one of the people that went to class for a little bit, then stopped going to class, and watch the recordings at home, and then like study a little bit. So what happened was that I would watch the lecture, and then that day I would go over my notes one more time, just like passing by, just like reading them. I wouldn't even like take notes or anything. I would just read them and try to like make sure that I was paying attention and like really understanding what the concepts were, because some of the concepts are hard. So like they would talk to me in lecture, and I would be like, I have no clue what you're talking about. Like this is not it. So I would like just read it over and see if I would understand it, and then like over the weekend, that first week, I would like do notes for that first week, and then the second week it would be the same, and I would just study with my roommates with Quizlets. We would make a lot of Quizlet questions, and then when Quizlet became like a paid thing, we just moved to Brainscape, and a lot of us like just make questions, and we just would go over them, and as a group we would like explain each other like what happened, like if we didn't understand a thing, like help each other out to like really tone it down basically. So I think it's just a thing of like, you have to figure out what works for you. If you're not understanding something in lecture, go over it at, like afterwards with someone, or like talk to the doctor or like the professor that talked to you during the lecture. Be like, I had no clue what you were talking about, because they go fast.
They do.
They're good at what they do, some of them are specialists, some of them like understand the underlying things of like all the things that they're teaching you.
Right.
And so I basically want to make sure that I understand, and people should just like do that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think it is really important to know how you study and how you learn, because I'm the same way. I need repetition or I will not remember something. So understanding that and knowing, okay, I need to see this multiple times, so I'm going to read over my notes after class or do notes on the weekends. I think that's really important. So I'm glad that you shared that today. I want to shift gears a little bit. You did mention that you are an immigrant. How has your experience as a Latina immigrant shaped your journey in veterinary medicine, and what unique challenges or perspectives has it brought to your studies?
That's a great question, Grace. I think that being an immigrant has put some obstacles in my journey. I was here on a visa through my parents, turned 26, and the government was like, you're done. So I had to get a student visa. With that came a lot of challenges, like monetary. I was like, am I gonna be able to keep the residents in-state tuition?
Right.
Because technically I'm not, quote unquote, the resident or in-state, because
right.
now I'm an immigrant, like an actual immigrant on paper.
Yeah.
And so that was a very challenging time during the first year, and a lot of like terms that like professors like talk, sometimes I'm like, I don't even know that word, or like this word is not resonating with me. I just have to like look into it. And then second year, basically what happened was that because I was a new like student, immigrant kind of, the main school had like things that I needed to do that wasn't really relate to me well. And so that just brought a lot of things like my insurance, because I was like an immigrant, the insurance is different. It's just not the original one from the school that the vet med school like asked for. It has to be one specifically for the main school. Nobody had told me that. That was like a whole issue, because they were asking for it like after half a year had passed, and then now they want me to like rectify that half of a semester that passed. And I'm like, what do you mean? And then it was like a whole issue. And now with like graduation, like my student visa is gonna expire, quote unquote, and I'm gonna have to get another visa. And so just thinking about that in the workforce, basically I have to think that what job is gonna offer me like security afterwards. And it's just like something that you have to think about and try to like manage with the vet med curriculum, because it's hard, it's stressful, you don't want to think about anything else. So you try to do like manage it as well as you can and take it one day as you can. Try to talk to the people that you have to, because if you keep on pushing it back, that just becomes a problem. So you just have to keep up with the time that they give you and just not push it back, because a lot of people just shut it down and it's like, I'm not even going to worry about it until after. But it's like something that you have to really tackle in that time, because if not, it's just going to become more of a problem. And so I also think like not having a lot of Latinos in the vet med community, it's a little bit hard. We do have in Virginia, Maryland, we have La Mesa Española. We do have a lot of professors that are from Latin like countries, and this like eat together. I know a lot of them personally because we have talked a lot, and basically we just discuss about like different topics that we might not have discussed with like an American or something like that. And I think it's like you have to make a community in the vet med like school that you like go to. If you are Latino, if you are just a minority, get in your community, try to like go to the events. Don't just disregard that just because you see a lot of people that don't look like you, basically. I actually am like white passing kind of Latina, and I understand that comes with a little bit more of a privilege in this situation, but I still feel, because I was born and raised in Mexico, I still feel very like enrooted like in my culture and the people, and so I still want to like build that community. I still talk in Spanish with my family. I don't talk English whatsoever with my family. Here and there, those words will come up, and I'm like, I forgot what it was in Spanish. But like, I try my best to just like speak in Spanish with my family and try to talk to them as much as possible. And I think it is important to stay in the community, stay in the culture, and not be embarrassed or anything, because there's not that many in that community. So I think just hitting those walls and breaking them and destroying them is the way to go, and just try to take it one day at a time is the best way that you can do. Like, don't look at like, shoot, I have to like graduation, what am I gonna do? Like, I wasn't really thinking about that in second year. I was thinking about the issues that I was having at school.
Right.
So just taking it one day at a time is the way to go, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can't imagine how difficult that was to have to deal with that on top of your studies. I can imagine that was really difficult, so I'm sorry that you had to go through that.
You work through it and you become a better person, in my opinion. I think I have a really good support system. I do have a boyfriend that listens to my yapping every single night and my ranting and everything, and so he had to deal with my like issues and stuff, and I just think him being there was like very helpful, and just that support system was, I think, a imperative thing to have during those times. I don't know if that's the correct word to use, but yeah. No,
I love it. And I love how you also mentioned finding your community here. I mean, obviously you're far away from your parents and far away from where you grew up, but the lunch that they have, she's mentioning, how do you say it? It's La Mesa?
La Mesa Española.
Española. Okay, La Mesa Española. They have it every Tuesday at lunch, and it's really a cool opportunity because the professors come together and they only speak Spanish at lunchtime. So people who do speak Spanish can come and speak in their native language with the professors. So I really think that's a cool opportunity. I have not gone because I don't think my Spanish is good enough for that.
They do open it to everyone.
They do.
They do mention that in every single email they'll send on Tuesdays, like, anyone can join, even if you don't know Spanish.
Yes.
Like, if you want to practice your Spanish, is a good like way to like practice it. They just created, I don't know if they're gonna do it this year, but last year for third year they had like a Spanish like terminology for vet med and stuff, and I took the class just to like see what was going on, see if I could help anyone that wanted to, like the easy A too, but like see if anyone wanted to like have practice or anything like that, if they were struggling, because they're not going to teach you like the basic like grammatical things every single day, like in every single thing. So it was just like, okay, I can maybe help out here and there to see if like people just need some help during the class. But I think the community is very strong in Virginia, Maryland. We just need more people to be interested.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that, and I love that you found your community here. I want to shift our focus to your fourth year. You are now our fourth year veterinary student. I would like to know, how have clinical rotations been going, and what piece of advice would you give to the current second years who are about to start their first rotations this summer?
Ooh, yeah. Congratulations on that. It's a big hurdle to go.
Yeah.
So basically, I just want to say that I'm a mixed animal tracker here in Virginia, Maryland. We do tracking. I'm a mixed animal tracker. I do have a little bit more leeway on the things that I can take during clinics. Small animal trackers, they're more strict on like what specialties they have to take, if they have how many specialties they have to take. Large animals, mostly large animal. Public corporate's a little bit different. So it's different for every single like tracker that what they're going to do during clinics. However, I do think thinking of after graduation, that's when you start thinking about it, like what things interest you, right? So I want to go into emergency. I'm currently in my fourth like emergency rotation. I do 2 like external emergency rotations, and then this is my second time doing the ER rotation at school. And from second year, I knew that I wanted to do it. I wanted to have the practice. I wanted to see what was like out there, just hospital wise. And I just think emergency gives you a lot of like different cases that you can see that you might not see in like specialty like rotations.
Right.
And I decided I really liked my neurology class. I was really good at neurology for some reason. A lot of people
Love
are
that
not.
For you. Yeah.
A lot of people are not. So I decided to, like, one of my specialty rotations would be neurology. I did want to give myself some leeway, have some fun with my clinical rotations, things that I will never do, right? So my last rotation is going to be a wildlife rehab for my public corporate. And it's one thing that I'm not going to probably do like out in practice, but I was really interested undergrad. I did do some internships in rehab, wildlife rehab, and I just think like going through it and actually sitting down with yourself, like not just like be like, oh, whatever they place me, like that's what I'm going to do. Actually sitting down, trying to reflect on what you want to do when you're out in practice. If you still don't know, that's completely fine. You still have like 2 years, and even after like graduation, after you're like in practice and everything, you can always switch. That's the great thing about vet medicine. But thinking about like what interests you. Is it only small animals? Is it like large animals? Is it a mix? You can, mixed animal trackers have to do a mixed animal practice. So like looking into that, like where would you want to go practice also is a big thing. Like I know I want to go back to Maryland. I'm from UMD, so Maryland, and I know I want to go back there. So I was looking at a lot of places there because it's a good opportunity to make connections. So let's say I don't go into emergency medicine for some reason. I know that there's a clinic that I might want to work there, and I already work there, and they already know my experience. They already know what I'm lacking on. They have seen my work ethic. Work ethic, thank you.
You got it.
And that's a good way to like make connections to possibly after graduation go and like work there. So I would recommend for the second years, take it nice and easy. The summer, you have 5 rotations, get used to it. If you don't know what's going on, that's fine. I think third year, like lectures really go through everything and like explain it a little bit further with like, depending on the classes you want to take. So I think if you feel like you're lost, you are probably lost, which is fine. And like my first ER rotation was my first rotation ever, second year. And so I think I was very lost. I think the work ethic is what they are trying to see during second year. Like, do you know the basics is basically what they're going to be looking at. If you know every single differential for vomiting, no. They're going to ask you for like the top ones. So just have something in mind. Take a deep breath. A lot of people will just like say words and yap, and like they actually don't think about it, and a lot of professors like understand that you're like scared, like nervous, and they understand that. But I feel like a lot of professors enjoy just like you taking a nice little deep breath and seeing like the gears like really be in your brain just working, and they're like, okay, now you can say what you need to say. Like, don't just say what the first thing in your mind is, because sometimes it's wrong, and sometimes they might like judge you maybe a little bit. Be like, why would he say that? Like, that's kind of weird, but it's like, oh, they know that you're nervous. They know that it's the first like few rotations. They don't have like high expectations on the second year. It's like as a fourth year, you're not going out to practice right after. Like they still don't know that there's lectures. They still know that there's more clinical rotations coming through. So just enjoy it is my main advice. Enjoy it. Understand that you're going to be a little bit lost, and just take a good amount of notes, and just ask questions. A lot of the professors are really nice. A lot of the techs have worked in the school for years and years and years. They know what they're talking about. Some of them are new, but they still know what they're talking about because they do it every single day. They have done this every single day. Ask the techs for questions and be nice to your techs. It's my biggest thing. Clean up yourself. Be nice to the techs. Nobody wants to clean up after you, so.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that advice. Definitely, we need to be ready to not know everything, because even in fourth year, I'm sure there's things that you don't know.
100%.
And definitely be nice to your techs. We were techs once.
Yes.
We know how much it sucks when the doctors are not kind to us.
Yeah, and they know, like, they talk. Like, a lot of the techs talk to each other, and they, know who's, like, causing problems and who's like actually working hard. Like I still see some of the techs that I worked back in July, and they are like, oh my god, Paulina, and they're like so excited to see me, and I'm like, that's one of the biggest things. Just be nice. Understand that you are not going to know, especially in specialty, like small animal specialty. Neurology, I still don't know half the thing. I took my neurology class. I still don't know half the things that like interns, residents, and doctors know, because that's not our focus. Like, we need to right now know everything and anything.
Right.
And so just know that you're gonna be lost, but just try your best.
Love the advice. What is the funniest or craziest thing that has happened to you during your clinical rotations?
I think one of the funniest things is that my equine field service rotation, I was on call, and the doctor was asking us, like, because we go on calls and stuff, what we wanted to see. And I was like, well, I think, like, just a choke. Like, having just a choke would be funny, like, not funny, but interesting, and seeing how they, like, that, like, works, because you learn it in lecture, but you don't see it. So I was like, yeah, I just want to see a choke, like, whatever. I was on call that day. Right after we get it off, the doctor texts me, and she's like, I hate you.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I was like, what did I do? And she was like, come to the school, we have a choke. And I was like, oh no. And she, like, I get into the car with her in the truck, and she's like, you are not allowed to say a single other, like, thing you want to see in this rotation again. And actually, we went out, and we thought that it was a choke, because it was, like, presenting as a choke. And we did the tubing, and nothing, like, she was still having symptoms, and, like, she was still coughing, and, like, having nasal discharge and everything. And we're like, this is weird. I didn't get any resistance putting in the tube. She was just like, I don't think this is a choke. Like, in her expertise, she was like, this is not a choke. And so we did end up, like, referring it to the hospital, and they did, like, an endoscopy of, like, the nose and the trachea and everything, and they did see that the trachea was, like, collapsing on itself.
Oh, wow.
And and I was like, I think that's weird.
Yeah.
That was, like, my second year as well, so I was like, I know that's not right.
Yeah.
But I have no idea what's going on.
I feel like that's rare in horses,
it's very rare.
Okay.
So she stayed in the hospital, was able to leave after a couple of days, but it's like, those are the funny moments that you're like, oh, I want to see something, and it happens, but it doesn't happen the way that you thought it was going to happen. It was actually not the thing. So I literally looked at the doctor, and I was like, well, technically I didn't see a choke.
That is so
she
funny.
was like, okay, you're not allowed to say anything else, though. And I was like, okay.
That's so fair.
Yeah.
I mean, it just goes to show you, vet med is not black and white.
Oh, never.
It's not always
never.
what that top differential is.
No. And it's also funny because in NAVLE they teach you, like, or, like, you learn all the obscure little, like, things, and then one time you might see it in practice, and it's like, oh wow, it actually exists. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
I know you've talked about this a little bit, but what has been your favorite rotation so far, and what has been your least favorite?
So I loved my neurology rotation. Honestly, if I didn't have to go through the internship and residency programs, I would have done neurology.
So bad.
I do like the localization. I think, like, just figuring that out is very easy, like, for me. So I'm like, okay, I have some way with neurology, and even the residents that I was working with, like, were trying to get me into, like, doing the match process and stuff.
Yeah.
I think neurology is very, like, simple in terms that you have to neurolocalize, and then from there do your differentials and then do the diagnostics. It's easy, it's simple, but it's very complicated in the sense of, like, the brain, like, everything comes from the brain for the most part, like, and so you have to be very good with your differentials and stuff, and try to figure out what's going on. And I think it's a very rewarding rotation. We did see a lot of back dogs, Frenchies, Dachshunds,
of course.
Beagles are a big one. I had a lot of Beagles in my rotation, and after, like, with the right type of care, with the right type of owners, I had a Dachshund that was deep pain negative, which means it didn't have any sensation or pain receptors in the back legs, and that was, like, a really bad prognosis. And now it's like a 50-50. You go through surgery or not, it's a 50-50 chance that they might walk. And the owners were really diligent with her care, and after a couple of weeks, I saw her back in the hospital, and she was walking.
Wow.
And I was like, that's a miracle, and I think it's a good, nice rotation to have. I do think you're going to see a lot of neurology cases out in practice. Even if you're general practice, if you're emergency, you'll see them. So I think neurology, even though it's hard, I understand it's very hard. It's a lot of work, a lot of on-calls, because everything, like, comes through neurology. There's at least one dog, like, getting transferred to neurology. I think it's a rewarding rotation, and I think a lot of people should take it, even if they're, like, hesitant. I think it's a good rotation to take. My least favorite, oh god. Okay, this is nothing against the actual rotation itself. It's just I had my large animal rotation, PMM is what we call it, during the midst of winter. And I actually liked it.
Yeah.
I liked the people that were with me for the most part, and the doctors were amazing, and they understand the small animal people don't do large animal for the most part. It's a rotation that we have to take, mandatory, and so it was just in the middle of winter, and it's how it kind of worked out. I don't know if we're going to talk about how to like think like about your clinics, and if you how to like, we here in Virginia, Maryland, we get to choose 3 rotations when we want to take it, and basically like go through that. But I was not thinking that PMM was going to be during December, and then I got it, and I was like, I'm not changing my like clinic rotation like timelines, because they're perfect except that one.
Yeah.
And so I think just going outside and having the middle of winter, like chilling degrees, like snow, everything, I would not prefer to do that again. That's what I would say. But I don't think it was like my least favorite. Like, it was not my favorite, but I don't think it was my least favorite.
Yeah.
I like all my rotations, honestly. They've been good in different ways. So
yeah. Do you want to briefly talk about like what rotations? Because we can lock 3 rotations in. Yes. What would you recommend for?
I would recommend doing at least one rotation that you know is kind of easy here in Virginia, Maryland. Is radiology, really.
Yeah.
And they know it upstairs, like, don't you worry. We have been very outspoken about our radiology rotation, but it's like one that you might not do a lot.
Yeah.
So you have downtime, and
Yes.
I would suggest, if you can, do that like a little 1 or 2 rotations before the NAVLE, your scheduled NAVLE, because I think that just gave me a good amount of time to study, 1, and 2, there is radiology. Do you know there's radiology questions in like the NAVLE, like at least 1 or 2, and I think it was like, at least here, they are really good at like teaching you how to read radiographs, even if you forgot.
Nice.
Because it's really hard just to remember some of the stuff that you learned the first year, obviously. And so I think they were really good with like teaching you again in the 3 weeks that you are in that rotation radiographs. I think I forgot half of the things that they taught me, and I was like, oh my god, duh. Like, I remember seeing that, and in the NAVLE, I know that we're not supposed to say anything, but like I did get radiograph questions, and I was like, I can actually look at them and kind of like fastly, like quickly, just like figure out something, right? Yeah. And so I think having one that is like quote unquote easy, or like not as like internal medicine, one of the rotations that you know you're going to be working on, it's like kind of hard, like on-call shifts, sometimes it's like 13-hour shifts, like you know you're going to work, maybe like put that after the NAVLE. Like, if you're going to put any like if you want to lock anything after the NAVLE, I would put that right after, or like way before, like in July or August, maybe do that rotation if you want to get like the small animal side of it. Like, if you're a large animal person and you want to take like at least one small animal rotation, and you want to make it like worth your while, I would say do like internal medicine like right before the NAVLE, but like a couple of months beforehand. And another one that I did was lab diagnostics. Basically our necropsy and ClinPath rotation. I did it before the NAVLE as well, and I logged out because I thought that I needed some practice with my ClinPath, and my like gross anatomy and like differentials was my biggest thing, and I hadn't seen a cow or a horse for a while, and we got a good amount of horses and a good amount of like cows in necropsy, and so you would have to go through differentials. You have to like talk to the doctors about what you think you're going to see, considering the history that they provide you. And I think that is a lot of the NAVLE as well. They'll give you like a history and everything. Yes. I know we're going to talk a little bit about it, but they'll give you the history and everything, and they'll be like, okay, what do you think? Right. Or what is the treatment, or what is the diagnostics and stuff like that. So I think it was very helpful. So just think about, like, I know you might want to put like the easy ones like during winter, like your holiday season and whatever, because maybe you're able to go home and stuff, but I would suggest maybe thinking about it a little bit more broad, and try to like get those rotations scheduled before the NAVLE, or like ones that will help you before the NAVLE, just so you're a little bit more prepared.
Yeah, I love that. That's great advice. Well, Speaking about the NAVLE, I am so thrilled that I get to congratulate you today because you passed the NAVLE on the first try. For anyone who doesn't know, the NAVLE is the North American Veterinary Licensing Exam that we have to take in order to become licensed veterinarians. How did you study for and prep for the NAVLE?
Yeah, so Virginia, Maryland does it differently, as in second years have their clinical rotations, during the second summer, and then they give us a couple months for fourth years to be able to study during the summer, and that was really helpful, honestly, because you have to start. Some people tell you like 6 months in advance, some people tell you 4 months in advance. It depends on how you study, right? Repetition for us, big thing. So I started 6 months beforehand, and what I did, I had vet prep. A lot of people will get basically one of the Zuko or vet prep. I think in the grand scheme of things, I might have chosen Zuku. Their questions are a little bit more how like the NAVLE has done them, and they're harder than the vet prep questions, I will say, for the most part. So I think Zuku would have been the way to go if I had to take it again, let's say. Thank God I didn't, but if I had to take it again, I would have probably gotten Zuku instead. But I got vet prep, which is still good. I think the way that I studied was making an Excel sheet, and through the questions that I was like doing, I would write down like the disease, some of the important things. So the big things that you might want to like know for like a lot of diseases is signalment. If there's a bit specific signalment, German Shepherd, big ones, and also basically any pertinent clinical signs that you might see. So think Cushing's. What are the big 5 things that you might like? If you see it in the question, you're like, this is probably what they're asking. Diagnostics, treatment, and prognosis. So those are the big 5 things that you might want to know about each disease. And so I would go through questions. They have a calendar that they use that you can use. I use it a little bit to be okay, this week is cattle, this week is horses. Oh, also I'll study for the most part the big 4 small animals, so dog and cat, equine and cattle. The rest, there's going to be questions about pigs and fish and whatever, but honestly, those big 4, if you can get most of the big 4 questions right, you're passing the NAVLE.
Nice.
So I would suggest spending most of the time, most of those months, studying the big 4, and then here and there, 1 week, study pigs, study reptiles, study maybe bird. I think I got maybe 2 or 3 questions about birds. And I could not tell you what they were, so I'm big 4 are the big things that you have to study. Additionally, the ICVA website does have a list of potential diseases that they might ask, and those are really nice to look at because it can feel overwhelming. You'll see a lot of different little diseases that you might have heard throughout your vet school years, and then you're I don't remember anything about that, whatever. And so that can just give you a visualization of some of the big ones, lepto, distemper, some rabies are the big ones.
Right.
So I would use vet prep as a way to get some information that I could put in an Excel sheet, and then a lot of questions would have different information for a specific disease, but they would ask it differently, and they would give you more information. So I would just put it in my Excel sheet and that disease topic. And so I did that. I did some of the Zuku videos that you can do for free. They post them I think every week they do those, and then they post them in their website for free for a couple of weeks. And then I did a couple of different things with podcasts. So speaking of podcasts, one of our professors here, Dr. Connor, has a podcast, and she goes through some little things that you might see in the ER, but Addison's, big things with Addison's, she would go through it, and she has the podcast with her husband that knows nothing about vet med really. He knows a little bit because he's married to a doctor, but he's so what do you mean about that? And she would break it down. And the drive from here to Maryland is a 4-hour drive, 5-hour drive with traffic. And so I would, during those few last months before the NAVLE, I would just use those drives that I would do to listen to the podcast.
Nice.
Vet Girl, I believe, has a good amount of different topics. Other podcasts that I'm blanking on have a good amount of information that you might be able to listen to if you're on drives or anything like that. Also, I got this trick from a friend of mine named Shauna. What she did to study for lectures was record herself and then listen to herself in the shower or anything like that to like get that repetition from her.
Nice.
And it was her voice, so I think she associated it better. So I started doing that with the Excel sheet with my diseases, and I would record myself before like I had to travel to a place, like an hour or something like that, like or Maryland. I would listen to myself, like record those like voices, like lepto, signal line for lepto, whatever the clinical signs for lepto. And I think that really helped, just like the repetition, and because you don't know what's going on in the NAVLE. You don't know what questions they're going to ask you. So you're just trying to get as much information in your brain as you can from different diseases. So I think just breaking it down, don't overwhelm yourself. It might feel like it at some point that you're just like learning just to learn, and it's fine because half of the stuff you're not going to see it out in practice. You might not even work with cattle at all, but you just have to like learn it even if you don't like it. I would suggest maybe starting with the things that you are strong at, and then like once you start like getting the hang of that, basically go to the things that you are not strong at and really like hone in like the first like few weeks before the NAVLE and just like look into it. Day before the NAVLE, I know everyone says it, don't study. Nothing's gonna come into your brain, like nothing's gonna stick. I am a person that has to study like a little bit at least, so I did 1 hour. I can't even tell you what I like studied that hour. Like I don't remember anything. That's but so like funny. Just sitting down doing 1 hour and then be like, I'm done. I'm not going to see anything again, and having a good night's rest is the biggest thing. And my big thing, go to wherever like place you're going to go to. If it's a little bit farther away from the school or where you're staying at, stay in a hotel. Why like our like place that we took the NAVLE is like at 45-ish minutes from the school, and where mostly people like live at, and so why risk it? If there's going to be like a traffic or anything in the highway or something like that, why risk it? So just stay in a hotel that's like closer by, have a good breakfast, drink some water, and take the breaks. Take the breaks. Your brain needs it. It's good. You're going to like it. Extend your legs for a second. Just sitting in this chair for like 60 minutes is not fun. Extend your legs, take a break, and eat in between the breaks. But those are my biggest things and how I study.
I love that. Those are some great strategies. I'm definitely going to employ some of those. But I remember you mentioning that you should definitely try to get a hotel the day before, because you don't want to be like, there's like some really big accident and you can't get there. I mean, this is an expensive test. You do not want to miss this exam.
Miss it, yeah. And I would suggest, last little thing, I would suggest doing the test earlier than later. A lot of people do regret. I had a lot of friends regret that they didn't take it in the first few weeks. You don't have to take it the first week, maybe like the third, fourth week that they allow it. But a lot of the people that took it in December, because the timeline is November to December, halfway through December, and people that took it like right at the end were very regretful, because a lot of people were done and were like kind of somewhat talking about it, because like people are like, oh, that's a relief and then whatever, and they're like, ugh, I still have to kind of study for it. And one of the biggest things is that if something happens and you have to reschedule, if you have it scheduled at the earlier part of the timeline, you're able to reschedule to a later time. If you're at the later time, like the last week, and there's no other dates or no other like dates or places that are like allowing it, you are not taking that exam until the next time. And I know that happened to someone last year, and they had to take it in April instead of like taking it in November, because they were sick or something, or there was traffic and they couldn't get it to it, and they were at the end of the timeline, and so they weren't able to reschedule their exam. Okay. So just a little advice.
Good piece of advice. And now, the question we have all been waiting for. You are 2 months away from graduating vet school. Do you feel ready to practice veterinary medicine?
No.
There it is, ladies and gentlemen. So true.
No.
Let's give them a dose of reality.
Yeah, so I think you will hear about mentorship all throughout your veterinary medicine career, and I think it is very true, because even during fourth year, you'll like feel more comfortable. Like from second year, I feel more comfortable like during clinics, and I know more stuff because of third year, you honing in on all the skills that you like, or the information that you like retained throughout the first 2 years. And clinical practice, I think, really gives you a way to practice those, and you have someone to like help you out, right? You're not on your own. You're not like dealing with those, you're not actually making the decisions. You're talking about them with a professor that has been there for a while and knows what they're talking about, and has seen most of the things that you are probably seeing in the hospital. And I think that it's very important that you don't feel that you can go out and be like, yeah, I'm good first day out of the bat, because you're learning so many different things. If you are going to mixed animal practice, you're seeing everything and anything. A lot of the new grad students have told me that they do not feel that like out of the bat, like I can do it, I know what I'm doing. They still have to call, like even when they're going on their own, like to calls and everything, like they'll call their doctor, the mentor, hey, I have this thing, I'm kind of confused, I don't know what to do. I had a friend that had a laceration on a horse, and she was like freaking out because it was in her leg, and they're like, okay, go back to the basics. Like she had to call someone, and they were like, go back to the basics. How bad is it? Is it in a joint? Whatever. And she like did most of the things, and then the horse was fine. But out of the bat, she didn't know what to do. She was like freaking out, and people are gonna freak out. They probably haven't seen half the things that they have done in clinics out in practice. They probably forgot, like half of the things that I've seen in like my earlier rotations, I already forgot. Like I don't have photogenic memory or anything like that. And so I think just knowing that you're not going to be out of the bat like, I know everything and I can do everything is a good way. I am more comfortable with some of the things that I'm seeing, and I'm more comfortable being like, okay, this is probably what we should do. But out of the bat, I think us going between like being students of like, okay, they are telling you what to do, you're discussing it, but they're telling you what to do, to okay, now I have to do all the decision making, and I'm actually the leader in this, like, and wherever you're going is gonna be a hard transition, because you're gonna feel like you're doing things wrong, and sometimes you might. Everyone does wrong things here and there. I've seen doctors out in practice. Well, I haven't seen it. There's people discussing it in front of me, like doctors doing things wrong out in practice. And everyone is human. Everyone's going to make mistakes. Just learn from those mistakes. Be able to educate yourself. CE is a big thing in vet med. Continuous education, for people that don't know what a C is. And I think you have to take those opportunities and really like don't feel like the ego of like, I know everything because I did my 4 years. Just learn from mentors. Obviously, if the mentor is like telling you stuff that you're like not agreeing with, maybe discuss it, and not like just follow what they're saying, but also like don't put a barrier between like you and your mentor or whoever, like an adult doctor, an older doctor, let's say, out in practice. Like just discuss it, understand why they are doing what they're doing, and understand why you would do what you're doing. It's like the big thing. Just they give us a fundamental thing in vet school, but they actually don't tell us how to like be doctors, if it makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's great advice. I think that it's a common misconception that we're going to graduate vet school and be ready to be doctors. Literally, no one that I've talked to graduating vet school has felt ready. So I'm glad that we were able to talk about it today so that we can really just make sure that it's clear to people that that's not a realistic expectation, you know? So, well, with that being said, what is one thing you are looking forward to when it comes to working in veterinary medicine? I think just the cases. I'm excited to be out in practice. I'm going to emergency medicine. Just seeing the cases. I think I do like sometimes like the client interactions that I get through like school, and having those like out in practice might be a little bit better because I can actually tell them what I want to tell them. Here at school it's a little bit harder because you're still a student and you're not technically allowed to tell them any medical advice or anything like that. So out in practice, actually telling them what I want to tell them, and the client communications is a big thing that I'm excited about, being able to recommend things that, I might do myself. So because here in the clinic, I hear the doctors talking to them and saying things, and then sometimes I want to like say something, intervene and be like, oh yeah, this, blah, 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 blah. And then sometimes, and when they ask questions, I sometimes have to be like, oh, let me double check with the doctor or whatever. So just having the freedom to be like, okay, this is, I'm the leader now. I'm the
your
doctor.
decision.
Like, it's the decision that I have to make now, and actually, like, going through it, I think it's going to be very liberating, and I'm excited to, like, do that.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for letting me interview today. I really enjoyed it, and I'm sure the listeners did too. Where can we find you on social media?
I'm on Instagram as pdog70. It's a high school thing, but
We love it.
Yeah, pdog 70. And I have a TikTok, but I don't like do stuff on TikTok. Maybe once I'm out in practice, I'll start like a TikTok with the same name, hopefully, or something similar. But yeah, that's
Perfect.
basically it.
I'll drop the link. Well, my name is Grace Gaynor, and I just interviewed Paulina Bravo, and we are Scrubbing Out.
That's a wrap for today's episode of Scrubbed In, the DVM Journey. Thanks for tuning in and being a part of our community of future vets and animal lovers. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. It helps others find the show and join the conversation. And if you have any questions or topics you'd love to hear about, feel free to leave us a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep scrubbing in, and remember, the journey to becoming a DVM is one step at a time.